Welcome, everybody. It's another Sunday evening now, late night. We are here to talk to you guys about some really cool comic books. My name is Joey Galvez. You guys are watching Explain Yourself, and this is my partner, Benjamin W. Morse. Ben, how's it been going since the last time that we spoke to you, man?
Pretty good. Not too much going on. How about you?
It's been a little wild because there's so much going on right now. Everybody decided to launch in October and not tell me until here, hey, it's 2 or 3 weeks out. Let's go. So I'm having fun doing all that stuff. But we're here to talk about some really cool stuff. It's been absolutely amazing to see all this crazy cool work that's going on in October, and then stuff that's coming out next year. But before we do anything, I don't want to talk too much. But let's just get right into it and introduce our creators on the panel today. Can you please introduce them one at a time?
All right, we have Mark Maia,
hey,
Eric DaSilva, and Nandor Fox Shaffer. Guys, thanks for coming on the show. It's great to have you.
Welcome to the show. We're gonna go around and talk to you guys really quick and ask you about your quick log lines. We want to, but there is one rule. We talked a little bit about it behind scenes though. Nandor's his mic is gonna be muted the whole entire time, even when he's telling you guys about his log line, because there's a rule: you cannot have a radio voice. The only person with a radio voice is supposed to be me. So, Nandor, first, please, since we're pulling your leg here, can you please give us a quick log line of your book?
Sure thing, Joey. Thanks. Thank you to Ben and you and for having me. This is really exciting to be back. This is my second time on the show, so I'm excited to talk about Man-Child. Last time I was on, we're talking about The Fabled Offering, my sci-fi fantasy one-shot. So it's cool to have that book fulfilled, getting into issue 3 of Man-Child. Excuse me, but did you want me to introduce myself or the project or both?
Give us the log line.
I mean, a little of both is good, but yeah.
Okay, cool. So, my name's Nandor Fox Shaffer. I've been making comics for about 7 years. Man-Child issue 3 is on Kickstarter right now, and it is a superhero action dramedy that tells an alternating tale between the Silver Age inspired adventures of the Monarch Crier and the real world misadventures of super nerd Rufus Boston. And the mystery of the series is how these two stories relate. And as we learn more about the Monarch Crier and more about Rufus, we start to see the contrast between fantasy and reality and the juxtaposition of both of these types of storytelling narratives. And overall, it's a commentary on comic book fandom and the joys and pitfalls of being a comic book nerd.
Very cool. Eric, let's jump over to Danger Squad. Tell us a little bit about you and the book.
Danger Squad was a book that I made during the pandemic because I needed it to make up a bedtime story for my kids because they were bored of all the books that I was reading them. So we were exchanging different movies and stuff that we liked. So I showed them Gremlins and Goonies and the first season of Stranger Things, and they showed me Gravity Falls and Star versus the Forces of Evil. And so in a pinch, I just created this thing out of my head that was sort of a love letter to all those things, and movies like Monster Squad and The Gate and all that. And I guess the log line would be, when 4 misfits discover their small town has some big scary secrets, they got to figure out the only way to stand up against all the things that creep in the dark is to become a Danger Squad.
Fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, tell us about So-Called Living.
Well, I'm the writer-creator of So-Called Living. So-Called Living is a different kind of vampire story, and it takes place in a world where the extraordinary is ordinary, where werewolves, vampires, zombies, everyone exists in a world just like ours, except for all the werewolves, zombies, and vampires. And it follows a guy named Jack who gets turned into a vampire, and then he needs to learn to adapt to this new way of living. In the meantime, he's being hunted down by the mob. That's it.
Fantastic. It sounds like we're gonna have to put the rule on you as well. So just letting you guys know. Fantastic. So this
too sexy.
I'm a little offended. Actually, I feel like, is my voice not good enough that you don't find?
That's why I chose you. That's why I chose you, because
I feel like that's kind of a backhanded compliment.
No, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry. I
I
crash and burn right up front.
The bell has been rung.
I was going to do a Bane voice, but I figured this is not the time or the place.
Yeah,
entertained?
You want the Danger Squad?
Yeah.
there you go. There you go. Let's go and jump right into it. Ben, I'm gonna hand this right over to you, pal, and you can go ahead and take care.
Let me bring up Manchild, Nandor, and we'll dive into a little bit more of this. So I've been reading. I think I read issue 1 and 2, and then obviously I did a cover for this one too that we'll get to a little bit. But see, it's obvious you're a huge Stan Lee fan, and you've really kind of taken something that I think kind of digests that sort of relationship we have with old comics and the legacy of those things and how much we like them.
Yeah.
With maybe how life turns out in the real world. And the one thing I'd say, and I've said this to you before, is every time I've read an issue of this, I think it's going to go a certain way based on things I've read before that kind of wrestle with these elements. And you never do that, but it always seems like the right thing. What kind of, when you kind of looked at remixing this stuff and putting it together in one story and weaving it together, what was your kind of your overarching principle with that? Is there something you really planned out with, like maybe zigging where other stories have zagged, or did you just kind of let this one go where it needed to go?
Yeah, it was really important for the approach I have for all my books, but Manchild specifically too was to try and do something with superheroes that people would be familiar with. There's a familiarity to these types of stories. There's been a lot of comic books over the years that kind of comment on superheroes and take superheroes through like a modern day lens and kind of put them through this other lens of how we see them. And with Manchild specifically, I wanted to I didn't want to just tell a nostalgia trip, through superhero 60s, Marvel Age of Comics. And I didn't just want to do like one of those real world type commentaries on superheroes. So I was like, how can I not fall into those, like, those tropes, I guess, or those cliches of, doing somewhat of a commentary on comic books, but have it be unique in that way and still like make it make sense, right? Because that's the whole thing about this series is like, how are these two stories connected and what is their relation? And for me, I thought it was really important to kind of show how far we've come with superhero storytelling and show how far it's changed, how much it's changed over the years, and how kind of, in the 21st century, when we look at new characters or look at new heroes, everything's very grounded, everything's very gritty. We're looking at things like in a postmodern way, and it's deconstruction type thinking when it comes to superheroes. And I'm all like interested in that kind of stuff. I really like that stuff. But for me, all of this really started when Stan Lee passed away, and I wanted to go back and I wanted to see like how did these stories used to be told, and what kind of lightning did they capture, what kind of magic did they capture. And that was really kind of where this all came from. And I'm glad that you're noticing how I'm well aware of like these types of stories, and so I'm trying not to do the same things. I'm trying not to just have it be where it's obvious like this is going to happen, or Rufus and Monarch are going to meet at the end of issue 1 or issue 2 or whatever. It's like it's not about that. It's more so about the journey rather than the destination, and it's about having that conversation with the reader when it comes to why we love these characters, why we love superheroes, but also there's a little bit of a comment on like obsession and escapism, and like how we go through as comic book nerds. We love this stuff so much, and we want to be a hero. Like growing up, it's like we want all these things, and as we grow up, we start to like lose some of these ideals, or the real world makes us jaded and things like that. And I wanted to bring all of that into this type of story.
Yeah, no, it's definitely there. And I think that when I've been, even reading the script for 3,
Yeah,
I haven't quite figured out how their stories connect yet, but I'm
right.
very interested. I don't think I'm supposed to know yet, but I feel like
Right.
it's going to be a good. I'm like very invested in seeing like, okay, how does the sort of the comic book plot connect to the real world? And I also love that the that's really something that's got me like kind of drawn in. I also like your real world characters are kind of your standard misfit, comic book fans. The main
Yeah.
character is kind of this heavy set guy with like long hair, and you look at that character and you think, okay, I get what they're going to do with this guy, and it doesn't really go that way. You treat him as a much more rounded character, and I think that just puts you on alert for the rest of the book too. It's like, okay, you're really looking at these things that I've seen before, but playing them really seriously and thinking them through. And I think
Yeah.
while I definitely I feel like I'm at the right place with the story. I don't know where the characters are going, I don't know where the plot's going, but I feel like it does have a really good plan to it.
Thank you. Yeah. I I write all the scripts. I write the entire story before, we start on the artwork,
Mhm.
so like I have a game plan, right? And I think that's really important when you're, trying to tell a
Mhm.
story, is at least, know where you're ended up. But, for me, I like to it keeps me at peace when I script it all out and I know it all works and I can, make sure that
Mhm.
if I need to throw some things and the other issues to make things, make more sense, and I can kind of edit it as we go along. But um, something with this story, specifically too with issue 3, that is so important is, this is, the midpoint of the series. It's going to be a 6 issue series, and at this juncture, things are really starting. The stakes are getting raised. The stakes are getting higher and more important to the story. And so, with the Monarch Crier, we're introducing these 6 new villains, and we're expanding his rogues gallery, which is really exciting. And then with Rufus, the issue is called Wednesday Warrior, and he is working volunteering at his LCS, his local comic book shop, and he is going to be working a very busy new comic book day, and he wasn't expecting that, and he's going to be dealing with all of the usual like comic book people that you meet at local comic book shops. And so that's been a lot of fun to write for this story in particular. But there's tragedy that strikes in his life during this issue, and we're going to see some really I think impactful moments in issue 3, and not only with the Monarch Crier but with Rufus as well. And that's been one of the biggest challenges of writing the story, is juggling these two stories, because you want to give enough time for each, and to make sure that the reader, it's one thing to get the reader invested in one of the stories, right? But to try to get the reader invested in both at the same time has been a creative challenge, but it's been really exciting for me, and to see if I could, do it justice.
No, I think you do. It's such a cool. I really love the design of these characters, but I think your writing really shines in the way that you just weave this together, and I think just really the suspense of it. I'm excited. I feel like you're combining these genres in a way that this story really could go anywhere. So it's one of those things that's been fun to follow for that reason.
Yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah. I always try to make sure that it's not too predictable at all, and that you can I want people to theorize, and I think that's a big part of being a fan and loving
Mhm.
comic books. It's like, what's going to happen next, and is are these characters going to meet, or who's going to fall, who's going to stand, and with all of these new characters that we're introducing, it just makes everything that more exciting, and I think it fleshes out the universe a little bit more. And especially as we get to the second to last issue of the series, issue 5, just to tease a little bit, but that's really where we get the world building aspect of the Monarch
Mhm.
Crier's universe. So things are definitely getting bigger, and things are getting more excited. So if there was ever a time to jump on, like this would be it. This would be the time.
Absolutely. Well, that seems like a good spot to pivot over to Eric and Danger Squad. So, Eric, you gave us a quick pitch before in the book, and I should mention if you're watching this on YouTube, the links for all these books are right down in the description. I think the Facebook link will show that as well, so you can click right over to Kickstarter and back these campaigns if you want to check them out. Um, so, you mentioned, Eric, that this kind of came out of sharing a lot of these old stories with your children during the pandemic, and you know, like just introducing them to stuff, them introducing stuff to you that you hadn't necessarily seen before. That really comes across in the book, that you kind of took some of these cool concepts and really, you know, kind of put them together and made it fun. Uh, as far as like when you came up with a story, was it something that just kind of organically came about when you were kind of telling stories to your kids, or did you kind of, you know, like think like, wait, I have something here, I'm going to sit down and outline out a really cool plot that could be a cool comic?
Well, here's the thing. I before I did this, I've never done anything for like kids. I for the past like 15 years, I've been a stand-up comedian, and so all I've known is how to make adults laugh. And you know, I got to be silly for my kids, but I didn't know what this I needed to do to make this work. So as I was making the story, I was literally like doing like little mini homages in my brain about, oh, like I like this in comics, like this in cartoons, and they like these parts in movies, I like these parts of their cartoons, so let me just mix them together and see what I can come up with. And after I told the story for the first time, they wanted to hear the story again, and I told the same story, which was essentially issue one, like 6 nights in a row. So as a comic, I figured out what worked, I dropped what didn't, I leaned into what they were into, and I started making this thing work. And then by the 7th day, I thought I knew how to tell the story perfectly. And then my kid's like, we want a new story. I was like, son of a bitch, I just figured this out. And now I got to think of a whole new IP. And they're like, no, Dad, we still like the characters. We just want a new adventure with those characters. I was like, oh, cool. That's awesome. So I started riffing new stories. Next thing you know, I'm making up a story. They're like, Dad, that can't happen. I'm like, why not? Like, because that happened 2 stories ago. So now I have to take a notebook because it's canon. I got to keep track of all the adventures, make sure there's no, you know, overlooping plot lines. And then when the pandemic started to open up and they started getting sleepovers, their friends are like, can you tell us a story that you told them? Because they've been telling us about it the whole time. So I'm doing this on request. So I figured, you know, kids are the meanest because they'll let you know when nothing works. So they're like, no, Dad, that's not it. I'm like, okay, that joke, garbage, tossed. So every joke that's ever made it into the book is like kid tested, approved by like different groups and everything. I eventually, after the pandemic, I met a woman through stand-up who was an executive producer for children's animation, and we put this whole pitch together, and it was supposed to be a cartoon series, and it went through a streaming service, and it went all the way to the top of, we had a big meeting, and then like 2 days before the meeting we get an email like, hey, we're going over the pitch, everything looks fantastic. I had some of my comedy buddies who are going to be doing voices, and they're like, we don't see the book this is based off of. And we're like, here's the best part, there is no book, it's an original IP. They're like, oh, we're just doing pre-existing media, so we can't take this anymore, which was a major bummer. So me and the executive producer said, well, if they need pre-existing media, let's make a media. So I took the first 3 episodes and I converted them into single issues. So issue 1 is the first episode. Issue 2 of the book is actually episode 3, and issue 3 of the book is episode 7. But I kind of jerry-rigged some stuff around to make it kind of all work. And we just got funded this Friday, so I'm excited to see people are excited about the book. I've had I field tested it with a couple of my friends who are parents, and I gave them the book, and I got stuff. I heard the gambit of like, this is awesome, my kids want to know where the next issue is going to come out, to like my 8-year-old got too scared by page 5, so we had to stop reading. And I'm like, that's awesome. That's exactly what I want. I want excitement and fear. And listen, like I said, this is an homage to stuff like Stranger Things and Monster Squad, but also if you're an 80s horror fan, if you ever saw the movie The Gate, like I want to eventually hit that kind of scary, but I don't want to start off like that off the bat. I want to build to it. So every issue we plan to get on getting scarier and more ridiculous, because I love Monster Squad. It's the title Danger Squad is an homage to that, and I love the idea of like, be scary and be funny. If you can be scary and funny, you got people hooked. There's always going to be that kind of like, oh, they did this and they did that. That's exactly what I love to do about it. So, and I like to, Gravity Falls did this great thing about sort of like doing a play on words on their monsters and everything. And so all my monsters have a little bit of a play on words kind of an idea with it. Like, for example, one of the episodes that we had planned for the series is we're going to introduce werewolves, but their whole thing is that they're wolves that turn human when they wear human clothing. and that's why they're called werewolves. But they have their own sub society and everything, so we would eventually learn about that. We have an episode that we have planned to do about spring break, but this town that draws the weird and the unknown would have been a paranormal spring break, and so it would have been a bunch of what we call chupacabros, and they would just be partying in this town, like chugging cows and ghosts, like, oh, it's awesome, and just destroying everything. So they had to kind of control this. So everything is but at the same time, if you think about what these monsters are doing, it's really scary. And so I like combining that kind of like the really scary factor, but also ridiculous. So the kids don't realize how scary it is, but you, the readers, like, this is kind of messed up if you think about it. So I love combining all those things. And this is, like I said, like, it's an homage and a love letter to, if you are a comic book fan of like Claremont and Hickman, I have the series is set as a 5-year plan. And if for Eagle Eye readers, I'll let you know that in issue 1, there is a panel that has a character in the background, never mentioned. It's there if you catch it. That character is the linchpin of the entire 5-year series. So, like, if you are excited, if you like those kind of like little elements being placed in a background that come back big, this book is all those things. And so, yeah, but that's the book.
Yeah.
And
Very
that
cool.
and right and I think the cherry on top, right, is scaring the crap out of kids every single night, right?
I try a little bit. I like a little scare, a little bit like, do you see under your bed? You should, because it's something's there, and I close the door quickly. That's what I like. So
he's like, oh yeah. And you wake up to a petrified child.
yeah, when my kids wake up in the night, Dad, there's a monster in my bed. I'm like, which one? Because I've seen a couple. Like, that's really what I want. I want them to know that you should be scared.
Oh,
it's
man.
always trying to get you.
Oh man, that's a nightmare waiting to happen. All right, man. I love it. And you've done some really unique stuff with this, right? You've kind of brought in everybody into this kind of world, and you kind of created like some little mini podcast episodes, right?
Oh yeah, so we did a whole, like, I guess we would call it like a shadow campaign about this, where we did and like my light just turned off, so clearly something's haunting happening. The whole thing we did was I wanted to kind of give this world a little bit more life, so I came up with a character called Dr. Mystery, and Dr. Mystery is the world's leading crypto conspiracy theorist. And I thought it'd be really cool where you have this guy who's always finding the conspiracy under the conspiracy. And while doing his podcast called the Perplexing Proof Podcast, he would discover the town that this book takes place in. And the more research he does in his town, the more obsessed he becomes, the more he wants to find out what happened. And by the 5th episode, he's gone completely insane because he's escaping the town. You don't know what happened, but he's gone completely mad while running away from the town. And we started releasing these episodes. Here's a fun little story. We started releasing the episodes. We made a X Twitter account for the podcast. The account got suspended by Twitter because it says we're promoting conspiracies. Let that sink in. That X is like, whoa, this is too crazy.
It's too much for you.
We had to do another account, and we did an extra video on the spot. I made it where it was talking about how Dr. Mystery realized that Elon was mad that he was getting too close to the truth, and that's what he's got to stop him. And nothing's going to stop him. And so one of the cool things is, if you go to dangersquad.com, and if this is like totally for free, if you just like doing mysteries, Dr. Mystery has hacked the Danger Squad website. And there are certain pages that are in code, and you have to decipher the codes. And there's a certain page where if you make it to the bottom of the page, there's a mystery board full of all these paranormal photos that you can look at. And some of the photos have letters on it. Well, if you take these words and letters and rearrange it, it spells a word. You put that word in the address field, and it takes you to Dr. Mystery's unlisted mystery cavern, where you can see all his podcasts, and you can reference all the photos that the town has been scrubbing offline that he's been collecting. And if there's on the certain tiers that we have, what I believe on the higher tiers, you can get Dr. Mystery's conspiracy folder, whereas all the photos that he's taken offline, the printout of all his podcasts written out, so you can see what's there and what's been redacted and all that. It's kind of like a fun extra little layer to the series. And the last episode, if you find the last episode of Dr. Mystery, he's talking a lot of nonsense, but those nonsenses are actually key story beats that are happening in the future.
Very, very cool. Very cool. And I love that. And we're going to talk a lot about marketing here in the next half of the show. But that is one of those things that is, I thought was very, very brilliant when you were talking with us about this stuff. And I said, yes, like doing like this really cool ARG kind of style campaign
Yes.
outside of this the campaign itself to bring people into this world a little bit more and kind of interact with it was absolutely genius.
Thanks,
And
man.
I encourage a lot more people to kind of get involved with their brand that way and somehow kind of do that to kind of create some excitement around it, which is really, really cool.
And full disclosure, it is a massive amount of work. And I just really realized that, like, whatever you put into the comic book, a whole marketing campaign on it is just as hard, if not more. And you have to figure all this out, but it is totally worth it when people are text messaging you or message you online going, is this the word? or like
That's
is
awesome.
this mean that? I'm like, I don't know. You got to figure it out. So that's pretty cool.
I love that. Love that.
Yeah, definitely want to dig more into that when we get to some of the marketing questions. But for now, let's jump over to Mark and so-called living. So, Mark, you gave us kind of the quick pitch, where you set up a lot of crazy elements that would be kind of the twist of a story for a lot of things. You've kind of said, "Hey, that's the world they live in," and then introduce some other elements to it. It's a great looking book. I love the colors of this and the artwork. It's fantastic. Tell me a little bit about some of your influences on kind of mashing together these genres.
Well, what you said the art was amazing. I like to give credit to Marco Leona. He's my artist. He's amazing. I was lucky to find him because as a writer doing a comic, it's expensive. So and finding the right artist can get risky. So I appreciate Marco for everything, for not not running away when I need him most, not ripping me off, always delivering, and he's getting better and better, which is great. So I blacked out there. The question was, oh yeah, what influenced these things? So, for me, it was always I wanted to create a world where all these monsters could exist, but like us, but they're not. Like every time you see a movie and there's vampires and werewolves and zombies, everybody's out there they're the main focus, and then the killers and then the bad guys. But I was like, what if they existed in our world along with us, and it's not an apocalyptic future, and it's not like they just appeared. They were always there, just like we were always there. So us non-supernatural people, which are referred to as normies in this world, we're just one of these multiple races: normies, vampires, werewolves, zombies, and we always exist, and everybody's got their place in society. And it's just like the world we live in now. So it's not dystopian, it's not remarkable, it's just our life. And which kind of falls into the title, so-called living, because our main guy, Jack, he gets turned into a vampire. So he's learning to adapt to this new way of living. And it's not like he's shunned by people and he's got to like now hide in the shadows. He still lives. People know vampires exist. There's maybe a bit of racism to certain creature types or monster types, but that's what he's doing, and it's a dark comedy. So that's what I wanted to do, is just a world where all these monsters exist and they're living their lives. It's like when you see these movies, think about this: between like Friday the 13th part like 1 and 2, or sorry, 2 and 3, what was Jason Voorhees up to? What was he doing? It was just, was he putting out, was he making marshmallows? Like, was he just working on like getting his steps in? What was he up to? So this world is kind of like, what are these monsters doing when they're not being monsters, right? So that's kind of what influenced the story. And if you look throughout the page, throughout the book, there's also a bunny motif. It's running as like this underlying bunny story. And you don't have to go very far in the page. Like you go past this, but once you see the bunnies, it's like bunnies all the way through. And it's subtle because it's in the, see, there you go. The rim, the trim of all these backgrounds is all bunnies. So if you look at that, it's it's a story that's happening in the background. So even when I designed this, I was thinking of the idea of like the bunnies are a background image. Everything happens, everything's in front of him, because Jack's story, these mob guys that you have on screen now that are after Jack, they're all the story that's in the foreground. This bunny thing is happening kind of in the background, and it's right from issue 1. There's like a a news report. Like there's a news report about zombies attacks. People are like, man, it happens. It's commonplace in this world. And then in the background, there's like this bunny story happening. And then they're like, the basically the world leaders have gotten together to discuss the serious bunny situation. And then TV's like clicked. It was just like something that's happening somewhere else. But the Jack story and this mob story is eventually going to collide with this bunny thing that's happening. And one of the things about the bunnies is what I like is that in a world full of monsters, everybody's concerned about the bunnies. So that's the biggest concern about it all. So anyways, that's what inspired the story. And again, it's a dark comedy. So when it comes down to Jack and his buddies, in that yellow cover that you see here, Jack is the guy that's going to be in his mouth first. Guy in the yellow sweaters, Tim and Marvin, they're his normie friends because they were all humans at one point, and then just Jack got bitten. The guy swallowing them is a mob guy, and he's after him. And the mob guys they're not comedy. They're very serious. So I describe it as, imagine if like the cast of Friends was being hunted down by the cast of Sopranos. So it's got that same kind of, they've got that intensity.
That would be hilarious. I would love to see that.
Yeah. So like the mob, they're serious. They're not cracking jokes. They take their shit very seriously. But then it's like Tony Soprano's got to deal with Chandler. So that's kind of like this world that's in there. And then the vampires, I mentioned that early on, it's like a different kind of vampire story. And when I wrote it, that wasn't my goal, wasn't to make a different kind of vampires. I was just like, I wrote these characters and how I wanted them to be. And I just threw them in the sandbox world, and I start writing them and I see what happens. Like I know some key moments are going to happen. I knew Jack was going to turn into a vampire. But as I write them, like actually Nick, the guy with the big mouth open there in the front of cover 4, that's he's the main vampire. It's Nick. He's a big guy. And behind him, there's a guy in the hoodie choking somebody out with one hand. He's like, his hand's wrapped around the guy's shoulders. He's a big guy. His name's Casper. So Nick is big, Casper's bigger. Those are the two vampires that you meet in issues 1 and 2. And they're kind of like Sons of Anarchy. Like imagine if the Sons of Anarchy were vampires. Mm-hmm. So that's how they fit in. And when I originally wrote the script, it was like 12 years ago. So I was kind of had a Lobo image for Nick. Mm-hmm. And then now that I've started working on it, because I wrote the script a while ago and then couldn't find an artist. When I found the right artist, I started it, which was like 2 years ago, I found Marco. And then we eventually got started. But now I would compare him to Butcher from The Boys. Okay. So that's kind of Nick's personality. So he's like the cool guy, but he'd love a good scrap, which is that scene there. Actually, he quite enjoys what happens in that book. And and this is books 3 and 4. 1 and 2 was a Kickstarter that I ran in March, and it did well. So I'm doing 3 and 4. So I've never done a Kickstarter before, so I decided to do 2 in 1 year. I've never done a comic book before, so I decided to do 4 in 1 year. So this is all. So I'm like new. I'm learning how to print. I'm learning how to find an artist. I'm learning how to like write a script for an artist to follow. But what I'm trying to bring experience from my day job, which is like I've been a video game designer, creative director, art director for 25 years. So I take that experience and I use that to try to direct Marco and direct the story and how the panels go together. But I'm still learning things. There are certain ways that panels are laid out in some pages that break some rules that I'll learn now for the future. So I'm learning as I go. But overall, I think we put out a really good the book. And this is a sample of like 3 pages from book 3. And if anybody's curious, book 1 is completely free on Global Comics. Just go there, type in So-Called Living and book. So you just read book 1 for free at any point, and it's just going to be free forever. And I hear a lot of people saying like they love Marco's art when they see it, and I was like, it's getting better. Like they love Marco's art in issue 1. His art in issue 3 and 4 is even better than it was in issue 1 and 2. So it's great, man. He's getting more comfortable with the characters, and So that's
it's great stuff. I was going to ask you, have you ever read a comic called Daymen? I forget who writes it, but Brian Stelfreeze drew it.
No, I never read it.
Okay, it's kind of a it seems like a TV pitch a little bit actually, but it's I kind of only read it because I'm a huge Brian Stelfreeze fan. He's a legend, one of the greatest to ever do it. But it's kind of sort of Sopranos-ish, five families take on vampires. And I was going to say, even the coloring scheme and some of the line work look a lot like that. It almost does look like this is the slightly humorous take on that world in some ways, and you're using a lot of the same elements. So I was wondering
Very cool.
if you
No, it
guys
was
have
called
looked
The
at that at all.
Dayman.
Yeah, the Daymen.
The Daymen. I'm gonna write that
Yeah,
down.
it was basically a.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the Daymen or the Dayman, but it was
I'll figure it out.
basically they're like gangster families, all these vampires, and they have humans that are like highly trained badasses to kind of be their sort of bodyguard, driver,
Hmm.
catspaw people during the day.
Well, I can tell you that there's more to these mobsters than meets the eye, but they're not vampires. And
Cool.
because in these 3 panels, you'll see they're looking for vampires and not to give them a hug. So they're very much like in issue 2 when these guys are introduced. Mr. DeLuca, who's the boss, he's the guy in the full suit. He's like just freaking out on some guy on the phone, and he's so how are we with swearing here? Ixnay on the swears nay. We're just we're okay. All right. So he's so like Mr. DeLuca's on the phone, he's like yelling at somebody. He's got like, he's got like a baggie and it's got like teeth in it. And he's like, next time I want twice as much product, it'll be your teeth in the fucking baggie. And he's just like going to town. Somebody slams down the phone. So it's like, well, there were clearly vampire fangs in the bag. And then in these 3 panels, you realize they're selling off vampires for like, they're grinding them up for parts and getting high off them is what they're selling. That's what these 3 pages are selling. So, but not every vampire has got the same potency, but something about Jack has made him special, and this guy knows about it, and he describes it as Nikki's brand. So there's something special about him that he wants. So
very cool.
Very
Well,
cool.
guys, these have been great. I mean, just to talk about the creative side of these books has been awesome. They're all fantastic looking books, and it's really cool that like you guys have been taking kind of similar genres in some ways, but also like combining different genres in the same way, and weaving them together into a really interesting, unique take on some of these things. But with that, I think Joey, let's toss it over to you and go back to Manchild and maybe talk about some of the ways that with Nandor about like how you've been getting the word out about this one.
Yeah. We don't have, because we had to switch some stuff up. We don't have our videos, do we? From our partner.
No, we don't have the Age of Geek.
Okay, so what we'll do is we'll just talk a little bit about it, right? We have a really great partner that we are partnering with to get some of the word out, right? So they are called All Ages of Geek. All you got to do is head on over to allagesofgeek.com and check out all the really cool stuff there. They have all kinds of stuff everything geeky, everything from comic books to manga to video games and everything in between. So it's a really cool site owned by 2 sisters who are doing amazing things in the geek world. So head on over to allagesofgeek.com right now, and you can see some of their cool stuff that they have to offer in the next issue of Archetypes. We're going to be dropping that here in the next couple of weeks here on Kickstarter ourselves. It's an independent geek culture magazine with comic books and articles. They're going to drop a really cool article in there about some really fun stuff. So you're definitely going to want to check that out. Now let's get right into our conversation about marketing and Nandor. I know you do quite a bit of podcasts and all that stuff. So, but is there something that you've done this time around? Because I know this is not your first time around the comic book world, but what have you done differently this time that you've done that you haven't done the last few times?
Yeah. So with this campaign, I have actually over the last year or so, I've been building up my newsletter subscribers a lot, and I've been working on my YouTube channel and trying to create more of a online presence in that way, and kind of be more be around more, I guess, be more part of the conversations, kind of in geek culture and whatnot. So I was doing all that kind of in preparation for this Kickstarter, just to like let people know I'm working on things, and I took a lot of time to promote the pre-launch page, and things like that to get as much signups as possible. So I put a lot of more focus in that, but also something I did this go around was I took advantage of my backer kit information and used backer kit to send emails to everyone who's ever backed me, through all my projects, which is something that I hadn't done before. And it's definitely helped. This has been the strongest launch for this series so far, in
Oh,
terms
wow.
of
Very cool.
numbers. When it comes to how quickly we got to the first or $2,000, and where we are, and I still have quite a few project followers, which I'm very excited about. So I feel like we're on our way, but it's definitely it's a hustle, right? You just got to keep grinding. And like you said, I
Yeah.
do a lot of shows. I think this is my 16th one of the
Oh,
month,
wow.
and I got two more, and I'm gonna try to get a few more before the campaign ends. But yeah, it's I enjoy them though. I really love talking about comics, and I really love
Yeah.
talking about the books. So it's been a lot of fun.
That's fantastic. So you've done some really good. How many campaigns is this for you?
This is my seventh campaign. Yeah.
Seventh campaign, and how do you feel that has this one grown since the first one?
Yeah, I think it kind of it's one of those things where, as I've had these conversations with other creators, and I feel like the superhero genre definitely is
Mhm.
a bit
Yeah.
harder to pitch. I don't know, to get people excited about your superheroes, because it's such an overly saturated market.
Yeah.
And so I feel like in terms of the Kickstarter ecosystem and what people are looking for, it's always a bit of a more uphill battle, and to try and get people on board with a project like this. But and I've never done like a single issue series before. I've only before Manchild, I just did graphic novels, and so offering a more meatier book in terms of page count, and then doing something that's more single issue style has been a challenge for me to kind of not necessarily change the pitch, but repackage it as with each issue comes along and what we're offering and where the story's going, but trying not to spoil too much at the same time for what's come before for people who want to jump on. So, I definitely think I have my loyal fan base, and I have more and more people that are coming in on day one than ever before. But it's
Yeah.
definitely something that I've noticed where I feel like there's there's something I'm missing, or like I need to take more time in the signups, or but
Yeah.
because I'm always thinking to myself, what could I be doing differently, what's working, what's not working, and should I be at a better place than where I am, and things like that. So
I feel
uh,
like that's like a question that we all kind of been asking
yeah,
ourselves
yeah. I
the
feel
last
like
few
that's a
months.
really, normal thing to kind of wonder. And, you're
Yeah.
always comparing your campaign with other campaigns that launch at
Uh-huh.
the same time. You're trying to see, what they're doing, what their updates are like, what they're offering, what kind of rewards do they have.
And I think that's the
So
best way to do it, right? Looking
yeah,
at other campaigns that are, similar to yours, or maybe even the same kind of size campaign, right? I don't know if that
right,
makes sense. Like right now, you're sitting in the 4 to 5K category, right, of funding and stuff, right? So look at other ones that are funding in that category as well as the same genre, right? So you're looking
right.
at these things, looking at what they're doing, what they're selling more, what they're not selling less, and kind of guiding yourself on your offerings and stuff, right? So obviously they're not going to be the same exact campaign, right? Because you don't want to do that, but you
Yeah,
want to at least get the lay of the land, the lay of the field, right? Before you kind of go into it and
yeah.
figure out, where am I going to set these price points,
What are people excited about? What
and
do they want to see?
what are
Yeah,
people excited about? What are people purchasing? How they're purchasing, and when they're doing it, right? All those
yeah,
fun consumer things that people really that it's really hard. Like you said a
yeah,
second ago, this is a kind of a hard thing, right? When you're wanting to just write comics or draw comics, right? you gotta think now. You have to think about the business side of things, and that can get really, really scary, and it can be really daunting, right? Because now you're looking at all these figures, and you're looking at all this stuff, and you're like, okay, now I really, really need to make sure that this thing funds at this amount, because if it doesn't, there's gonna be some they're empty and mostly yours, but there's going to be people that are going to be coming for their cut, right? So
Yeah.
it's rough. And then right now, Kickstarter's been a little rough on some of these different campaigns and not funding as high as they were, right? Some people feel like we kind of bursted the bubble a little bit. I don't know if we bursted the bubble, but I feel like things are kind of getting back to normal a little bit.
Yeah.
In the economy outside of Kickstarter, just by itself, obviously it's going to affect, the Kickstarter as well and consumer products as well. So we got to think about these ongoing things. And when you're a comic book creator and all you want to do is write, it's that you don't want to do that stuff sometimes. So how do you, when you look at these things and you're like, okay, what do I got to do when you're, and maybe I want to talk to, Eric here on this one. What do you, Eric, do when you look at that? This is your first one, and you reached out to us to help you when you looked at that. So you were looking at all the crazy things. You're like, this business side of things is scary, and you reached out to us. So what would be your advice to somebody who's looking at, who's kind of in your same shoes there, wanting to do this for the first time, or what would you tell them to do?
Tons of getting pre-subscribers is a lifesaver, because we were able to reach 50% of our funding in the first week, which was like a big, okay, cool, that work was worth it. And then the third week we made it, and it's all because of pre-subscribers getting those on the Danger Squad website. We had a mailing list, so hitting people on the mailing list was massively important. I didn't know what I was doing, which is why I reached out to you guys, and you guys kind of gave me a reality check about what was possible, what wasn't, and what's the best way to go. And I took your advice, and we plowed through forward what we're doing on this, and it has been a massive learning experience. It's gotten me a little bit more excited about what to do with the next two books, because we have issue 2 and 3 ready to go, so we're trying to schedule that out now. But just on the success of what the market we've been able to do, this is kind of cool. A digital distributor called Anyone is picked up the book, and starting December 11th, this book will they just squad the regular cover with the regular story will be available through them on December 11th. So this marketing does help out, because they saw that the campaign got funded quickly. They liked the book. And so every outlet is possible. You don't know what's going to happen with the marketing of the book. So do everything. Nandor was talking about doing 16 shows. This is my 9th. And so getting the word out there is really important. And
it's hard right now with podcasts, because a lot of the podcasts that were there about a year or two ago are either gone or doing something differently, and they're not really taking interviews. So you really have to find those new ones. And this Nandor, I'm gonna have to take some of those names down so that we can get some of our creators on there, because we own a podcast network of 100+ podcasts on there, right? And they're all live and working. And it's hard to get our guys on for an interview with even 100 podcasts. So we have to look outside of our own network, which is, and then what's even crazier is we have to bring it down to even a smaller niche, right? Which is comic books, right? And there's not a lot of comic book podcasts out there, right? So when you find them, you keep them in your back pocket. You make them happy, and maybe you create a package for them and send it to them. But what you do is you keep them, and you keep a relationship with them, and you boost them as much as they would boost you, right? So and go ahead.
I'll say, yeah, any kind of contact. I was very lucky where a couple of my local comic book stores, shout out to Infinite Realities, they supported the book as well, and they shared the Kickstarter on their mailing list and all that, and that's been nothing but fantastic. So that's really cool. And I just had to talk with them. They once the book starts going off with the physical copies, we're gonna do a signing at their comic book store, and all that is important. If you are
Awesome.
friends with your local comic book store, definitely talk to them about helping get the word out, maybe little promotional flyers that they can
Maybe
give out.
and maybe even talk to them about an exclusive cover for their shop
Yes, that's another thing we were talking about
only.
too. Yeah,
And then because now you're stroking this local community, right? Because one thing that I learned from your partner over at Kinetic Comics, which is Callan, he has a really great home base, which is locally, and I feel like sometimes like he sells more books locally than he does like online or at other shows where he travels other places. And that's one of those big things that a lot of people really kind of neglect sometimes is your local scene. Check it out, because there's a lot, even though you feel like there might not be a lot, if there's one or two, then you're the scene, right? And you're the one that gets to create that and make it what it is. So get
and
out
there's
there.
a
Go ahead.
network of comic book store owners that talk to each other. Like, you ever feel like, oh,
Exactly.
we're out of this book, but we know a guy, we'll reach out and we'll get you that book for you. That's that network. So they could say,
Yep.
guys, this book is solid. You should pick up a copy or pick up 10 or whatever the case is,
Yep.
and have that love spread around, because that'll help build interest, because no one's going to know more about what kind of fan base your book can pivot to than the guys who have the built-in fan base. Like, oh, we sell X number of this book, so your book is kind of like that. We should market it to that. Like that, take all that help in there, because they are boots on the ground to know where to go out next.
And think about when your books are out there being printed, right? And they're already good, and you're shipping them out. Think about possibly talking to your local comic shop about consignment as well, right? Because that's another way to put your books inside. And a lot of our creator friends do that. They put their books in their favorite shop, and especially you, like Eric's creating this relationship with that shop. There's so many different opportunities that you could do with one shop that supports you, and you support them back as much as they support you. And it's this amazing thing that you'll see happen. You'll start to grow your scene a little bit locally. So very,
Absolutely.
very Mark, let's talk to you a little bit about what you've done. Listen, I was looking through your campaign, and I feel like your art background and your design background kind of jumps out here, because this is one of those these pages. This is one of the most beautiful looking pages that I've seen in quite some time. Because the way you did that background with those bunnies, and you kind of have this, you said that there's a background story going on. You got this background behind this. It's awesome how you're doing this stuff. So talk to us a little bit about your planning, your strategies, and what you've done to get this book out there and get the word out.
Well, what I try to focus on is branding, right? So I kind of set up rules and things I want to get out there. So like the bunnies are always kind of they're always present in some way, and that's been an interesting marketing thing, because I've tried a few things. I've tried, like, for the first technically the first Kickstarter did better than the second one, but there's a few reasons for that. Is the first Kickstarter, when I first promoted it as like a follow now, I was going to launch in November, and then I didn't know what I was doing at that time, but I just put a banner out. I was like, I just got to get going. And then I was doing some research. I was like, well, November is a terrible time to go up on Kickstarter. So I just stopped. So, but I was pushing so hard to get attention to the follows. All of a sudden, that I had like this 2-month lead up ended up being like a 6-month, 7th-month lead up. So instead of having, like, on this one, I think I had 70, 80 followers, something like that. I can't remember. And on the first one, I had 180 something followers, but I had more time. It was just sitting there forever for people to find. And I was promoting it for so much longer, and that worked. But so for me, it was time, not necessarily money, because I've done some tests, because most of the marketing I'm doing now is kind of like tests for the future, right? I'm always trying to experiment. So I'll put in, like, I'm going to put this much money into ads here. I'm going to put in this much money ads here, and then et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm going to do some video ads, some still ads, some GIFs. And then I'll do, like, you know what? I'm not going to put any money. I'm just going to go into groups and get into discussions and try to mention it. And I've seen just as many results on the on just the mentioning it in a group than I have paying for it. So the way it's starting to affect my thought is like the money I'm putting into advertising, unless you're really, you know, putting some serious dollars behind advertising, is the money I'm putting into advertising, I'm looking at that as just kind of like money that just those, like if I didn't put it, then I'd be doing better on the books. Because you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you could, like, say if you sunk $1,000 into
Oh, yeah.
promotions just because you wanted to try that. And you didn't, like, you're not gonna at that level, being an indie non-known writer, non-known entity, like I'm not making characters that anybody knows about, right? So it's indie's risky. So like I
It
don't
is,
feel like you make that money back.
and I feel
So
like
I think there was a time like 2 years ago where the Facebook ads were gold. Like you get
that
$10 back for every dollar you
2020.
spent. But that came and went. I think that's kind of
Yeah,
over for at
Well,
least
I
a certain
feel
tier
like
creator now.
you have to do it strategically, right? Like it's good to, like, if you're gonna spend some money on it, right? Obviously, you know, put some money on it because ads do work, right? There's a reason why they're ads, right? There's a reason why there's advertising agencies, because they do work. But you're absolutely correct. For them to work, you're a designer. You've probably seen lots of advertising in your life that you have to seriously put some money down on it, some serious money down, in order for it to kind of, you know, get you to see some ROI on that. And a lot of the indie creators are not, they don't want to, you know, spend that kind of money on just an ad, right? So
that
you
makes
got to
sense.
go do different things. So it's hard. Go ahead.
It makes sense because that's it's risky, right? Because that's
It
the
is
thing
risky.
with
And it's an
indie.
experiment, like you said. Yeah.
Yeah, so like I'm getting a lot of like click-throughs on the ads.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But then people get here and then they don't buy. But
Yeah.
but I was like, I don't know who they're serving these ads up to, right?
Yeah.
And the one thing I've also noticed is that I get better feedback promoting on like not promoting, but like getting on channels or groups on Facebook that aren't indie groups, because indie people aren't out there to support your book necessarily. They're out there to get support for their book. So that's
You gotta find the right people, the right crew, the right
yeah,
people
like,
who
there are
actually.
some that are like, yeah, I want to, you know, I want to
Yeah.
help you out because I want people to help me out, so I'll help you out. Like I try to get them pitch in, but I feel like the majority of people are like, hey, look at me, look at me, look at me. I don't have time to look at you, look at me. Like that's, and I get it because we're all trying to do the same thing because we're all broke and we're all trying to like, hey, look at my book. So and it's kind of tough when you're like, I'm not buying, like I might come in here and support 3 people, but nobody's going to support me, or you know what I mean? Like, so it's just weird. So I'm just kind to I'm just trying, I'm still feeling it. Like I said, I'm new. This is my second Kickstarter in just like my first one was in March and now I'm doing one in October. So for me, it's very like all very condensed. And so I'm kind of learning the process. And although I know how to make pretty things, I don't know how to put them in front of the right people. Like, and that's part of what I'm doing. And I actually have, like, I have a YouTube channel that does all right. It's Board Game Coffee. It's all about board games. Now, I haven't really pitched to those people because I don't want to interrupt what they've come to my channel for. They come to my channel for board games. I don't want to be like, hey, and I'm making a board game. Like I've put the odd Instagram post there. And like the channel's a decent size. It's like I think it's just under 17,000, and Instagram's like just under 12. That's like 20 people under 12,000 or something like that. And so like there's a lot. That's a lot of reach. But at the same time, I don't want to lose people because they like, now this guy's just pushing his comic book. Like that's not what I subscribed for. So I've tried the odd pitch there, and and there's a few like loyal like guys that are big fans of the channel, and they'll come and they'll back the book just because they like me, and they come there, and I've gotten more results out of that. But that's not something that I can share with everybody else. So it's like, oh yeah, just, you know, build a YouTube channel, get, you know, 20,000 followers, and then tell them like that's not something you can do overnight.
That's also a chore too, right? It could become a job, right? Being part of a YouTube channel. We do this every week, right? And it can get a little hard to do it sometimes, and you have to, like, just like anything else, you have to continue. You can do it consistently and constantly, and give them exactly what you gave them each week, right? So it can be a little bit difficult with those for some of those people who are not comfortable with it, right? But you're absolutely right. Like, I from what I hear from the 3 of you guys is getting out there in the community, have a mailing list, talking word of mouth. It's word of mouth that is the biggest thing, right? And paying for ads is great and doing all this stuff, right? But it's mostly getting out there, talking about yourself, talking about your book, talking about your experiences, having some fun little anecdotes and things like that on live streams, and and maybe throwing some money at some advertising and stuff like that. But mostly, finding a way to get the word out through word of mouth, and that's one of the biggest things that I feel is the easiest, right? And it's still the golden. I think the golden goose, right, is still word of mouth.
Well,
I feel.
one thing I wanted to add to kind of like the initial part of the question, which I kind of ran off on a tangent, was I mentioned branding, and I try to do that wherever I can. So even when I do like a con, I do the typical, like I have a banner with my logo and art and whatever. And and that stuff's great. And I try to stay consistent. But I also have, like, you see this bunny trim on everything. I have these stands that I custom designed and built, and they hold my comics up. So my comics are flat.
Yeah.
They're up. They're custom built wood. I designed them. My wife cuts them on a laser cutter that she has in her office.
Awesome.
And they're these. It's these bunnies coming out the edge of the comics, and they have a big bunny at the top, and at the front it has the So-Called Living logo. So that's that. I also got like a giant bunny that holds little bunny keychains, because we have bunny keychains, and I have like a membership thing where if you get a bunny keychain, you become a blood bunny colonist, and then you get perks on every Kickstarter. And then I've got, when I at the table, it's myself wearing, I'm not wearing it now, but I have a So-Called Living shirt, and then I got my wife and I got my friend Jess, and they're both wearing white tank tops that say So-Called Living, and they have bunny ears, and they're always there. So there's always two of them. Now, one thing I've noticed is like having one, just my wife in a white tank. She's just a girl in a white tank top with the logos. It's just, that's your thing. But once I had two, then it became like a pattern. It seems intentional, and people were taking notice. So people go to the cons and they start, like, I've only done like 4 cons, and one I wouldn't even count. I'm not going to say which one that was, but we were stuck in some aisle that nobody came down. So I was like, that was our first con. So I'm not going to talk about that one. But so we have them out there, and people are like, hey, it's like basically 3 good con showings, and people are like, hey, it's the bunny girls, and people come and they take pictures with us at their booth, and they share, and we have, like, one of them will be walking around, they'll be like, hey, I read your comic, it was great, because they recognize, well, like, one, they attach them, like, they're separated, we're like, oh yeah, you're the bunny girl, you're with the other bunny girl, like, it links them together. So one could be across the way, and they'll be like, oh yeah, you from there. So it's always that kind of like conscious reminder. They pop up.
What I'm hearing is you're bringing all this fun stuff that you have on this page in the comic book, and now you're bringing it to your table and giving them a full experience. And branding, that's one of those key elements too. I feel like Nandor's got branding going on as well, but I feel like with Danger Squad, that's a big, huge branding thing too. You can do all kinds of fun stuff with that. It really helps if you have this really rich and really, really extravagant story and characters and all this stuff, right? So it really helps to have this really rich world to kind of bring people into when you're doing this stuff. I love that. We're running out of time here. We can run this into like 2 hours, but we're running out of time here. We want to get everybody home and to bed safe. But before we do, we're going to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the things that we are promoting right now. Danger Squad's one of the ones that we're promoting, so we definitely want you guys to head on over to geekcollective.net/Danger Squad and check this one out. This one's live for another 10 days. We are funded, so that means that the first stretch goal has been unlocked. We're gonna let remind me again, Eric, what is the first stretch goal? That
first stretch goal is an exclusive variant cover, which is done by my friend Oscar Jimenez, and he is a brilliant artist, all sorts of media, and he did a wonderful anime cover for Danger Squad. So if you like the style of the book but want to see them like anime, That's what the unlockable cover for the first stretch goal. Second stretch goal is going to be by a very good friend of mine, Omar San Cristobal. He is the character technical director for Pixar Studios, and he did an exclusive variant cover for as well. So if we get to the second stretch goal, that becomes available as well.
And let you guys know, you guys are definitely going to want to help this one get to that second stretch goal, because Omar San Cristobal is actually one of the ones that he was the head of a department that designed one of the characters in Inside Out 2. Right? Is that correct?
Inside Out 2. Also, Luca, his team helped develop the Leviathan from the first Avengers movie, the giant space whale. His team did that, and his new series coming out Disney Plus called Win or Lose. So, I mean, this guy is in it to win it. He's a great artist, so you definitely want to see that cover.
Definitely, that's one of the ones that I really want to see. I want to get that one on my shelf. So
nice.
Make sure that we get this one unlocked, guys. So we only have 9 days to unlock these next two. So please make sure you guys are doing that one. What else do we have up on? We have I think we have Magni the Mighty, right, from Band of Bards. This was Geek Collective, or no, this one is bandabards.com/MagniKS. This one is a really cool one. This one is the Sons of Thor, and you're definitely gonna want to check this one out. This is the second issue is going to be 30 pages from Band of Bards. This one still needs some help. How many days do we have left on this one? Just a handful of days. We got 5 days left, guys, and like we have like 2, 3, almost 4K to hit this goal. So please head on over to bandabards.com/MagniKS and check this one out. This has got all kinds of really fun stuff. There's even an editing tier there, because this one is it was created by a really great editor. So you guys definitely want to check this one out. What's next up, Ben?
All I know about is archetypes in my book. Do we have anything else in between there?
No, we have Osrin Tales. Head on over to geekcollective.net/Osrin Tales. That one is live, I believe. Or no, that one is live, I believe. I'm sorry, there's so many in my head right now. That one's still live, so you guys can check that one out. I believe Sunken Kingdom is probably still is live as well. That one I am actually part of the team on Sunken Kingdom. That I designed and laid out that book. So make sure you guys are heading over there and checking that one out as well. It's a really cool story about this. I'm just gonna tell you, it's an underwater knight. Look at that. Look how badass that thing is. This is one of my favorite. Like, I had so much fun designing this book. It's so gorgeous. The interiors, the story. You guys are definitely going to want to check this one out. And like underwater knight kicking ass. You guys are going to definitely check this one out. Gorgeous artwork. Crazy monsters. There's a person covered in barnacles. Definitely want to check that one out. So very cool stuff. To head on over there to check that one out. And then Archetypes. Archetypes is going to be going live here. If you guys don't know what Archetypes is, it's an independent geek culture magazine. It's kind of our tip of the hat to Wizard Magazine and Fangoria. This one, we're going to be where we have 82 followers. We've been sitting at 82 followers for a little while now. We want to hit 100 followers before we launch this one. We got this. This is the cover A. This was done by a fantastic artist that gave us one of their stories to talk about. I designed this cover as well. It goes along with our regular issue of issue 1. You're gonna have issue 1 and issue 2 available for this one. We're gonna have all kinds of really cool campaigns. We're gonna have t-shirts, some really cool t-shirts that are available. We're gonna have one that says Archetypes. We're also gonna have stickers, and this time around, I didn't get to tell you, Ben. We created a tarot card for this one because it's Halloween, and this is a Halloween issue. We're going to be doing two issues per year, so they're biannual, and this one's going to be dropping here in Halloween, and we can have another one that's going to be dropping in the springtime. But this one, because it's the spooky season book, we're going to have some really cool stuff. We have some stickers, some shirts, some really fun tarot cards. The tarot cards were drawn by my buddy Jay Hammond, and then I designed the back of it. It's going to be really cool. I'm going to post some stuff here tomorrow showing you guys a little bit all the cool stuff that's going to be coming on. But to go along with those tarot cards, we possibly may have some tarot readings in an actual tier. So if you guys are wanting to do some tarot readings and get the tarot card and a book to go along with it, you guys are definitely going to want to check this one out. I've been doing some tarot readings for myself, and they are spot on. Like, seriously, I don't know if you guys have ever done one, but it was spot on with everything that I was going through, everything that's going to be coming up. It was telling me what I needed to do, and fantastic stuff. So make sure you guys are checking this one out. And then we got Ben. Please tell us about what you've got coming up.
All right. So launching pretty soon is the next Scarlet Twilight book. It's called. It's going to be Cobalt Crisis. This particular campaign is going to be kind of a countdown to Cobalt Crisis. So it's an anthology in the spirit of a lot of old Golden Age comics, where we have an A story and a few backup stories, but they all kind of form their own thread and lead into the larger kind of 8-part series, which is a real love letter to. Let's bring this one up. Your kind of Crisis on Infinite Earths or a Secret Wars type event. So it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be everything you like about those big earth-shattering, continuity-changing events that DC and Marvel do, but we're not really burdened by the sort of continuity needs that you have to follow with those stories. So it's going to be just the good stuff of that. And it's also going to have all that Golden Age atmosphere that I think is really a fun part, at least for me, to do for the first Scarlet Twilight. So it's going to be everything you like about that stuff and none of the bad stuff. So heroes will die, universes will shatter, and comic history will be forever changed. And I should also mention, I want to show off a few of the some stuff I haven't shown off quite that much before.
And before you do that, we have I want to let you guys know that there is a short in Archetypes issue 1 that has to do with Ace Falcon, which it shows up in the Crisis book there. So you guys are going to definitely want to grab this book here from our campaign to read a little bit of what's going to be happening in his story there, Scarlet Twilight. So make sure you guys check that out.
Yeah, the Ace Falcon story is also going to be part of this, and we're actually setting up some things that'll happen to Ace down the line. We're also going to introduce sorry, man.
No, you're good.
The Captain Lancet of Earth 86, which is going to be a really fun kind of a love letter to Dark Knight and all that stuff.
Love the
that I love about Batman. But this is going to be a fun story that kind of just exists in this one. But we're going to set up a lot of cool characters here. They're going to feed into this story. It's going to be a lot of fun. And I hope you'll head over to Kickstarter and check this one out. It should be launching really soon.
Definitely love this stuff. And make sure you guys are following us everywhere you guys can. Follow me on Twitter and on Kickstarter, and keep an eye out for Archetypes. This is Archetypes issue 1. This will be available in the Kickstarter that's going to be dropping here in the next couple of weeks, and issue 2 will be available. You'll be able to grab this one. We also still have some embossed covers that of our cover B that Ben did for us, and we are also, he's doing a Fangoria homage. The first one was a Wizard homage. We're doing a Fangoria homage. That one's going to be done here within the next week or so, and we're going to be dropping this one. So make sure you guys do that, checking that out. Head on over to Geek Collective and find us on Kickstarter.
Sounds good.
Yeah, that's all I got, Ben. You got anything else?
I think we ran through all of it. Guys, thanks so much for showing off your books. It's been such cool stuff to look at and to talk about. And I hope everyone who is watching has enjoyed it as much as I have.
Thank you so much. Ben, please see us out.